Imagine this. You're turning 18, the big day everyone's supposed to celebrate. The party is roaring in the old beach house my grandparents left me. Waves crashing outside, string lights glowing, laughter echoing off the weathered cedar walls. Everyone's toasting to my future, clinking glasses like nothing could ever go wrong. But while they cheer, I slip into the quiet study upstairs, pull out my phone, and hit confirm on the final digital signature. In that one click, their entire multi-million-dollar estate, the beachfront house, the acres of dunes, the investment accounts, goes into an irrevocable trust, with me as the sole trustee. Locked. Forever. No takebacks. My name is Riley Morgan, and that single moment changed everything. I'd been planning it for months with the lawyer my grandparents swore by, waiting until I was legally an adult. The doubts had been whispering for years, but I never spoke them aloud, until that night. The very next morning, as the Atlantic fog still clung to the shore like a heavy blanket, I heard tires crunching on the Shell driveway. A moving truck rolled in, followed by my parents' SUV and my older brother's pickup. They stepped out, smiling wide, carrying stacks of papers like they'd won the lottery. "We've got it all handled, sweetheart," my dad called out, voice full of that fake confidence he uses when he's about to take control. "The house is ours now. Time to pack your things. We'll get you set up somewhere nice in town." They started directing the movers right away, pointing at furniture, boxes, like they'd owned the place for years. That's when they looked up at the wide ocean-facing deck and saw the man in the crisp suit standing next to a local sheriff's deputy, holding a thick folder, waiting patiently. If you've ever had family try to steal what's rightfully yours, or had to draw a hard line with the people who raised you, drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one. And if toxic family dynamics, betrayal, and sweet, calculated justice hit close to home, hit that subscribe button right now, turn on notifications, and give this video a like. You won't want to miss what happens next. Trust me. It started when I was 13. One envelope arrived in the mail that flipped my world. A full academic scholarship to one of the top private schools in Raleigh, merit-based, covering everything, tuition, books, even room and board if I wanted it. I'd worked my tail off for that. Straight A's, extra projects, weekend tutoring gigs. I ran home from the bus stop, heart pounding, waving the letter like a trophy. I burst through the door and shoved it in my mom's face. She glanced at it, gave a half smile, and said, "That's sweet, Riley. Good for you." Then she turned back to the phone, talking about my brother, Ethan. Ethan had wrecked his dirt bike that week, nothing life-threatening, just a broken arm and a totaled bike after showing off on a trail he wasn't supposed to ride. But the whole house revolved around him. Mom spent days at the hospital, arguing with insurance, finding the best specialist. Dad bought him a brand new, even more expensive bike as a get-well gift, saying, "Boys need to push limits, it's how they learn." They threw a party for his recovery, invited all his friends, celebrated like he'd won a championship. My scholarship letter? It sat on the kitchen counter until I moved it myself. No celebration, no family dinner, no, "We're so proud." I framed it alone in my room, hung it where only I could see it every morning. That was the first crack. My wins were expected. Ethan's disasters? They became family emergencies. The next year made it worse. Ethan, 16 then, was out joyriding in Dad's classic Mustang, another reward for good behavior after a suspension. He sideswiped a parked car downtown. Damage? About $8,000. I braced for the fallout. When I was 10 and accidentally broke Mom's antique mirror while practicing dance in the living room, I got grounded for a month and lectures on responsibility every night. But Ethan? Mom and Dad drove straight to the car owner's house, apologized profusely, wrote a check on the spot, then took him straight to the dealership. "He needs something safer," Dad said, handing over keys to a newer, flashier truck. They called it teaching accountability. To me, it looked like rewarding chaos. Ethan came home grinning, showing off the new ride while Dad clapped him on the back. "Mistakes happen, we fix them together." That moment sealed it. I wasn't just second place, I was the invisible one, held to impossible standards, expected to be perfect and self-sufficient, while Ethan's screw-ups got cushioned with money and excuses. I stopped sharing my successes. I buried the hurt. I learned to rely only on myself. Ethan wasn't the villain, he was just the golden child in a system my parents built. But it made me question what family really meant when love felt so one-sided. The beach house in the Outer Banks became my real home growing up. Those weekend drives from our inland town, 3 hours of highways turning into 2-lane roads lined with salt marshes and dunes, always felt like entering another world. The ocean roar replaced everything. No city noise, just waves and wind through the sea oats. Afternoons were spent with my grandfather, Harlan Morgan. He'd point out erosion on the dunes, sagging deck railings from salt spray, and we'd grab tools from his weathered shed. We'd replace pilings, seal boards, patch the roof. He moved slower in his later years, but his hands were steady, showing me how to level a post just right so it lasted storms. Sweat mixed with salt air, and he'd share quiet wisdom. Build it strong the first time, Riley, saves you heartache later. His nod when a repair held firm meant more than any grade ever could. Evenings shifted inside with grandmother Clara. Her kitchen smelled of fresh crab boil and cornbread. We'd peel shrimp, layer low country boil in the big pot, sausage, potatoes, corn, Old Bay. It simmered for hours, filling the house with warmth. We'd eat on the screened porch, bowls steaming, bread sopping up the broth. She'd tell stories about meeting Grandpa during the war, building this house board by board on weekends off from the shipyard. Her soft questions about my life made me feel seen, really seen, for the first time. As their health faded, I stepped up. Doctor runs to nearby towns, helping with groceries up the steep dune path, reading mail when eyes failed, sitting through hospital nights. They never demanded it, just squeezed my hand, slipped me extra pie, said thank you in ways that mattered. One night changed everything. Grandpa in his rocking chair by the fireplace, flames low, Grandma already asleep. He stared at the ocean and said, "I've watched your dad chase bad investments. Ethan blow money on toys that break. Your mom, she means well, but she enables it all." He paused. Clara and I talked it over for years. This house, the land, the savings, it's going to you. We trust you'll keep it safe. Preserve it, not squander it. Then the words that stuck. Family isn't about who gets the most. It's about who can hold it without breaking it. That night, doubt planted itself. I'd overheard Dad talking about beachfront values skyrocketing and maybe time to cash in. Suspicion grew quietly. Their health declined fast. Grandma fell on the deck. Complications came quick. Grandpa's heart gave out months later, like he couldn't stay without her. The service was small, on the beach at sunset. Neighbors and old friends sharing stories of barbecues and storm help. The lawyer read the will, everything to me, the house, dunes, accounts, built over lifetimes. It wasn't just money, it was deliberate trust. Word of coastal development spread fast. New resorts, better roads, tourism exploding along the Outer Banks. Property values climbed. Family visits increased. Unannounced weekends. Dad checking the place. Ethan walking the property lines with a tape measure, muttering about acreage and views. One day he sat on the deck with a notebook. "This could be huge. Sell now, split it. Everyone gets a piece. Pay off debts, set up college funds, maybe get me that boat I've been wanting." Dad agreed next visit. "Maintenance is expensive, Riley. Taxes, storms, too much for one person." Mom added, "We could use the money for the house back home or a family trip we've talked about forever." Ethan dreamed aloud. New truck, gear for his lacrosse team. Their talk shifted from memories to appraisals, realtors, timelines. No one asked how I felt about losing the only place that ever felt like mine. Driving back from a meeting with the lawyer, Doubts roared, but clarity came too. Their help was calculation. I signed the irrevocable trust papers the next day, locked it all down. The dinner invitation came soon after. They wanted to gather at the beach house. Easier for everyone. I agreed, curious. I stocked the fridge, set the table, lit the fire pit. They arrived smiling, wine and pie in hand. Conversations started light, weather, Ethan's sports, town gossip. Over dessert, I tossed out a hypothetical. What if the house suddenly wasn't ours, went to charity or something? What would you think? Silence. Then deflection. Plans poured out. Expand the deck for rentals, add a hot tub, Airbnb it. We could make bank, Ethan said. I'd handle weekends. Dad calculated income. Mom suggested decor changes. They spoke like it was already decided. No input from me. Assumptions thick as fog. That night confirmed it. Boundaries weren't optional. They were survival. Dawn broke over the dunes the next morning, pale light filtering through the sea oats, the ocean breathing steady and low. I was already up, coffee in hand, standing on the wide deck when the rumble started. First, the moving truck groaning up the shell driveway, then my parents' SUV, then Ethan's new pickup kicking up dust and bits of crushed shell. They stepped out almost in sync, smiles wide, papers in hand, the movers jumping down from the cab like they'd rehearsed this. Ethan waved a thick manila envelope like a flag of victory. "We got it sorted, Riley," he called out, striding forward. "Signed, notarized, filed. Everything's official now." Dad immediately started directing the crew. "Start with the big stuff, the sectional sofa, the dining table. Careful on the steps, they're old." Mom was already unpacking labeled boxes she'd brought, rearranging mental furniture in her head. Ethan handed the documents around proudly. I handled the notary myself, turned 18 last month, made it easy. They moved like they owned the rhythm of the place already, wrapping Grandpa's old lighthouse lantern, folding Grandma's quilt collection into plastic bins, chatting about storage units back in town and which pieces to sell at a yard sale. I stood just inside the French doors, watching it all unfold without saying a word. The crew hauled out the heavy oak coffee table Grandpa built himself. Then, mid-motion, every head turned upward. There, on the upper deck, overlooking the ocean, stood Jonathan Rice in his charcoal suit, calm as stone, next to a Sevier County Sheriff's deputy, badge gleaming in the early light, official folder in hand. Jonathan descended the steps slowly. "Good morning. I need to speak with everyone present regarding this property." Dad's smile froze. "And you are?" "Jonathan Rice, attorney for the estate trust of Riley Morgan. This is Deputy Ellis responding to a report of attempted unlawful transfer." Ethan gripped the envelope tighter. "We have paperwork. It's all legal." Jonathan took the documents, flipped through them with the ease of someone who'd seen this exact scene before. "These filings are invalid, multiple grounds, forged signatures, unauthorized notary seal, state records show no certification for the service listed. The primary deed transfer documents contain alterations not matching the original title." Dad's posture shifted. "There must be some misunderstanding. We followed the forms carefully." Deputy Ellis spoke evenly, voice carrying over the waves. "Attempting to transfer title without true owner consent, especially using fraudulent instruments, is title fraud under North Carolina law. This is formal notice. Cease all activity immediately." Mom's hand flew to her chest. We were just helping the family, making things fair." Ethan's face went pale. The envelope trembled. He'd signed as a co-transferee, bold signature right there in black ink. His voice cracked. "I only did what they told me. I thought it was okay." Dad rubbed his temple. "Let's talk this through reasonably. No need for officers." Jonathan didn't flinch. "The beach house, the dune acres, and all associated accounts are held in an irrevocable trust executed legally and properly several weeks ago. Riley Morgan is the sole trustee. Any further attempt to interfere risks criminal charges in addition to civil liability. The crew exchanged looks, one guy already lowering the ramp back into the truck. Deputy Ellis addressed them directly. "No loading today. Work stops now." Silence crashed over the clearing, heavier than any storm surge. Ethan sank onto a nearby cooler, head in his hands, the cocky 19-year-old gone, replaced by a kid realizing he'd been handed a loaded gun. Mom reached for him instinctively, but froze mid-step. Dad's shoulders slumped, the director suddenly without a script. Victor, wait, no, in this story it's just the core family, but the weight was the same. Ethan's youth exposed, parents' certainty shattered, all pretense stripped away in morning light. Jonathan handed over copies of the trust documents and cease and desist notices. "Further attempts will escalate. I strongly recommend each of you consult independent counsel, separately." Deputy Ellis added quietly, "We'll document the incident. Any repeat visits without permission will be considered trespassing." They retreated in stunned slow motion. The truck backed down the drive first, then the SUV, then Ethan's pickup, engine low and defeated. Dust settled. The ocean kept rolling in, indifferent. Jonathan turned to me after they were gone. "You okay?" I nodded once. "It hurts, but it's done." He gave a small, respectful nod. This took real courage. Most people wait until it's too late. The countersuit came quickly. Jonathan filed alleging attempted title had intentional interference with inheritance rights and breach of fiduciary expectations under North Carolina statutes. Discovery moved fast. Emails, text chains, Ethan's Google searches for quick deed transfer forms, scanned copies of the forged notary stamp. The evidence stacked like driftwood after a hurricane. They hired lawyers, separate ones. Costs mounted immediately. Retainers, depositions, filings. Ethan's college fund, already thin, started bleeding. Mom and Dad refinanced the house in town just to keep up. The case never even made it to a full trial. After 2 mediation sessions and seeing the mountain of documentation, their attorneys advised settlement. The judge ruled decisively in my favor. Compensatory damages for my legal fees, punitive damages to discourage future conduct. Total judgment climbed past 6 figures when all fees and costs settled. Payments stretched over months. Garnished wages, liens placed, small monthly checks that arrived like apologies they never spoke. Contact ended completely after that. Phone numbers blocked, social media unfollowed and accounts set to private. Holiday cards stopped arriving. Group texts vanished without a goodbye. Not one message of regret. Not one admission, just silence. Deep, final, and absolute. Life at the beach house found its own rhythm. Mornings meant walking the dune line at sunrise, checking for erosion, replanting sea oats where wind had torn them loose, Grandma's old habit I kept alive. I'd rake the paths, mend the boardwalk, feel salt air on my skin while the sun climbed. Afternoons were for projects. I replaced the weathered deck railings Grandpa had patched years ago, sanded, stained, screwed in fresh pressure-treated lumber. Each nail driven was a quiet promise to keep the place standing. Evenings brought the screened porch, a book from their shelves, tea steaming beside me, waves murmuring below. Solitude wasn't lonely anymore. It was space, room to breathe, to grieve what was lost, to build what remained. Ethan finished high school quieter than before. No big parties, no flashy graduation gifts. He went to community college nearby, working part-time to cover what scholarships didn't. Mom and Dad downsized, sold the big house, moved to a smaller place inland. They stopped mentioning the beach, stopped mentioning me. I stood on the upper deck one crisp winter morning, January, cold wind off the Atlantic, coffee warming my hands. Mist hovered over the dunes. Gulls wheeled overhead. The house creaked softly behind me, still strong, still mine. I learned something deeper than any court victory could teach. Protecting what matters sometimes means releasing the people who never truly valued it. Family isn't blood alone, it's shown in actions over years. Setting boundaries isn't cruelty, it's the highest form of self-respect. It carves out space for real connections later, ones built on mutual honor, not obligation. If you're carrying the weight of unbalanced family dynamics, inheritance pressure, the slow burn of favoritism, know this. Standing firm doesn't always feel heroic in the moment. It feels terrifying. But on the other side, there's quiet strength, autonomy, a life shaped by your own hands. You can get there too. If this story hit you, if you've ever had to protect what's yours from the people closest to you, drop your experience in the comments. I read every one. And if you want more real, raw stories of revenge, justice, and reclaiming what's yours, smash that subscribe button, hit the bell, and give this video a like. Trust me, you're going to want to see what comes next. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves out there.